えーっと、はい、ここからの進行を行います。渋沢と申します。はい、次のタイトルについてですけど、まあ、多分表示されてます。ピクミン2になりますね。よろしくお願いします。僕は、奏者ではないので、この解説自体にはできないんですけど、コメントの方で解説をしていただけるということなので、まあ、できればそれを拾いながら、まあ、このゲームについて、なるだけ切らさずにやっていこうかなと思います。
We have $25 from Dimitri that says, making a 15-hour drive tomorrow, so can't watch any GDQ then, but I wanted to get a donation early. Good luck to all the runners, and I can't wait to catch up on the VODs. That's right, guys, if you do miss a run, or you just want to rewatch one of your favorite runners, all of these runs will be uploaded to the GameStone Quick YouTube, and you'll be able to check them all out.
We have
$100 from no-name user that says, pay off that debt.
マイクの、
We're going to give it on over to Draz with Pikmin 2.
Hello everyone, welcome back to GDQ. I'm Jack, I'll be running Pikmin 2 Pay Off Debt. And with me I have
これ言われてる。マジか、ちょっと待って。
Hi, I'm the Urban Deer, or Urban. I am also a Pikmin 2 speedrunner.
I am Cap, and along with Urban and Jack, I am also a Pikmin 2 speedrunner. We're happy to be here.
Okay, so on that note, and unless the sort of sound of God tells me I shouldn't do so, I'll start in 3,
ちょっと感動。
1. Okay, so to briefly introduce the overall game, I know I said it before.
感度を下げたので、
It's about getting 10,000
また声が割れてたら。
as possible. So that's based on the fact that the company that our main protagonist work for has gone into some serious debt. So we've come back to the planet that Olimar was stranded on, as traumatizing as I'm sure that is for him, to pick up some treasures. Which to
そう、まあ、このゲーム
items.
ですけど、
So the treasure
まあ、
spots, or the run
任
spots
天堂が
with like a very strange trick from day one. So I'll let one of the commentators
いろいろ
answer that, if that's okay.
Yeah, so Pikmin runs in general or Pikmin games in general are known for kind of
2004年に
for the first day.
任天堂ゲームキューブ版のタイトルとして出されたゲームですけど、
Pikmin game where we can pretty much entirely skip that tutorial day. So you're going to see Jack here whistle a couple Pikmin and then throw them out of bounds. And if you kill Pikmin, it'll automatically cause an extinction, and the day automatically ends when that happens. This ends up being a lot faster than going through the tutorial.
このゲームは、まあ、
So there you go. Unfortunate
キ
intended
ャプテンオリマーっていう、まあ、
their deaths will be remembered.
小さな、
Yes. And they make the whole thing possible.
まあ、矛盾星人と呼ばれるね、
Captains throw Pikmin. So essentially they exist in the world behind
種族の
the head of the captain, so
まあ、オリマーというシャインが、
they can't exist there when we
この
throw.
作では、まあ、ロイ君というね、
So the early part of the game here is really just about
あ
getting to the highest number of Pikmin
一面に、まあ、壁の中にピクミンがい
So
て、
obviously when you start
ピクミンを点滅させることでチュートリアルをスキップします。まあ、これはいつもの。
So we'll explain sort of the basic mechanics as part of this.
この全滅マニアの中
So
は、
you can see here that
あれが結構確か、この RTA の
onion here
肝になってて、
growth for all of our Pikmin. And yeah, as a result of the glitch called Day 1 Extinction, we only start with one Pikmin, because the game's like, oh, you lost all of yours, here you go. Have one, just so that you can actually play the game. So, this cutscene
まあ、
essentially
借金返済までの
so we'll take it in the same way. Pikmin
RTA
duplicate
で、
by
だいぶ多
so
分
you can see these things that we call pellets, and they use them in
短い
essentially grow more.
種目じゃないかな。
Right. And
So
the,
sorry, go on.
I was going to say, the cutscene you're seeing now is one of the ones that you would normally see on that tutorial day. But we'll see some pretty weird timings of a lot of those cutscenes that we would normally see on that day as a result of entirely skipping it. So.
借金の1万ポコを返済するまでの時間を競う RTA。
Really know what we're doing or what's happening in general.
確かにどっかで聞いたことあるような RTA です。まあまあ。
Okay, so here I'm gonna go for a trick called Louis Skip. So, okay, too early. So the goal of it is essentially to skip one of these early game cutscenes that we're talking about. So it's Louis finds the onion, freaks out, and does a bunch of whole other stuff. So if I skip it, then that means we won't see an extra cutscene. It saves about, I think, 14 seconds, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I feel like the community sort of mindset changes on this like once every 2 weeks. How much time it actually saves.
Severe mental damage if you miss it. So, but
Yeah.
But basically, you can basically interrupt any cutscene with pressing start, and so most of the time you don't want to do that, at least in Payoff Debt. But in this case, you can basically interrupt the cutscene with pressing start.
登場のムービースキップは
And by ending the day, the ending the day interrupts
成功したみたいです。
and so it just never plays as a result.
It is a 1-frame window, so it is a frame perfect trick.
Yeah, we didn't get it, so we're gonna have to watch the cutscene of shame.
Oh, it's a fun
at least-
cutscene because we get to see the Louis eyes.
もう今日はやることがないので、さっさと
The result of
ス
the
キッ
game
プされ
is
ました
we've
ね。
sort of skipped all the tutorial stuff, but we'll get to that in time.
Yeah, so
If
these
you're
first days.
wondering,
Go ahead.
oh sorry. If you're wondering why Jack keeps rapidly ending the day here, there's a paper bag that you're supposed to knock down on day 1 that he never does, and it has a weight of 15, and so Jack has to basically quickly cycle through the days to, up the Pikmin numbers until he can quickly reach 15. So he grows. We grow
ピクミン
on the first 3 days, and so now
6
he's
匹
in a position to get over that.
ほど
barrier.
出して、
Yeah, so the
今
reason we
は
have to end the days is
どうやら
physically
数を
the resources on the map
増やしている
Pikmin, if you want to think
みたい
of
で
a way
す。
to grow 15. So we've got to really go through the days.
あ、スキップしようとしたんですが、
Pretty good. I missed one row there, but it doesn't really have any meaningful impact.
すいません。
So yeah, as Cap said, we're going to squish this bag. Takes 15 boys sitting on top of it.
規定の15匹を
Yeah, and we finally now have access to
到達して、
the number of Pikmin. So you see him grabbing those 5 pellets. Those are clearly worth 5 if they're taken to the correct color. The 1 pellets, interestingly, are worth 2, even though they say 1 on them, if they're taken to the right color. So,
まあ、
like, Cap,
まだずっと
we're just focusing on
数を増やしてるだけっ
right
て
now.
いう感じですか
So
ね。
we can enter the first cave as
Yeah.
quickly as possible.
Do you want to
So
talk about
this-
egg push?
Yeah, go for it.
No, I was gonna say.
I mean,
なんか怪しい動きを。
Sort of meticulously pushing this egg down, and this is just to save us nectaring time later, because then you don't have to go up while you're waiting for the stuff to come in so you can grow it, and so basically, it just saves a lot of time. Something that the captains can do while we wait for the pellets to come in.
so unfortunate
Tamago gacha.
thing there. Every now and then, the 10 pellet that's up there will not latch correctly with the Pikmin. It's not too much of an issue, but it's as a result we're plucking these a bit later than we should. But overall, the rest of the split's gone fine.
Yeah, and just quickly to mention what's in that egg. So in that egg is something called nectar, and what it does is essentially power up our Pikmin.
ああ、なるほどね。
Any stronger, but you'll see them
これだけ集めて、
leaf stage to a flower
一
stage,
気に
and the flower
上がる
stage
しです。
not only runs faster but carries things much quicker as well. So we definitely want as many flowers as possible.
ああ、卵、そうですね。ピクミン回収までの、
Aim is sort of
タイムラグがあるので、それを利用して、
places as quickly as
で
possible,
卵をもう、
whilst making sure
やるだけオニオンの近くに寄せようっていう
we didn't get Louis skip. We got
技ですね。うわ、これで46匹、
the Louis cutscene skip.
全部もう花になったんじゃないですか
We。changed the numbers accordingly.
Right, and so normally on day 1 you're forced to collect a treasure, but we skipped that day, the tutorial day. So a weird thing happens there when you approach a treasure for the first time. It shows the treasure that you're supposed to approach for the first time, that battery. We actually won't be collecting that right now. We'll be collecting our first treasure in this area when we come back later on. We'll talk a little bit more about what happens as a result of that. Here you're going to see that the Louis cutscene we were talking about, and something is a little wrong with Louis' eyes here. Hopefully the Pikmin are on
Yeah,
the way to see
keep-
it. Keep
keep
your
in
eyes
mind-
out for it. See if you
この
can
ムービーは、
the game very confused. And that's understating what is actually going on here. The game has no idea why we're here. Because you're meant to be like all the way over to the right from where I am now.
あ、ルーイも操作できるよっていう
And it's just completely
意
losing
味です。
we're in this area.
Lovely.
But yeah, the benefit of having this all done has sort of come to light as well. One of the other benefits of day 1 extinction is that we have flower Pikmin here. So those eggs only spawn, I think it's on either day 3 or 4, which normally you wouldn't have access to on the first day. So obviously, well, I say
で、最初の洞窟
but flower Pikmin carry treasures faster.
を
We'll get a bit more into sort
発見しましたが、ルーイのムービーが発生してしまったので、12秒の
Overall, day 1 extinction
Lost
saves
all
around
the
a minute
this.
to a minute 15 from the day 1 route. Just because of how much better skipping the tutorial is, and then also the flower Pikmin literally carry us faster. So
まあ、基本的にやっぱ RTA では、ルービー以外はやっぱりスキップできるならしたいっていう額だと思うので、
For the most part, it's a little complicated, but the treasures you can almost think of as being sort of randomly placed. So a lot of times, no run is going to look the same as a previous run. So you'll see lots of differences, and a lot of this speedrun is about kind of moving along with things and keeping up as things are different each run.
ピクミン2は結構、
I think it'll show itself a lot more in later caves.
こうした洞窟ステージが
Simpler.
で、基本的にまあお宝を回収していくんですけど、このマップが結構ガチャで
variants really that's
いい配置を引けるかどうかが割と
whereas in later caves, like they can generate like
RTA の鍵を結構握ってる印象がある。
amounts of layouts, each of which can generally be categorized into like certain game plans, but we'll get more into that when we get there, I think.
Yeah, it definitely gets a lot more complex.
この最初の洞窟は
So the goal of Emergence Cave is going to make itself known pretty clear. So this globe here is what's called
結構機動力が試される
essentially upgrade
ゲームで、確かここであれば
becomes like character
紫ピクミンを
So that one, as you can see, is a map. So that is key for unlocking the next area that we're going to be going to and sort of continuing the progression. And people familiar with the Pikmin series will be getting excited, hopefully at this point, for the carnage that's about to be ensued, because these are purple Pikmin. And purple Pikmin do not mess around. They are potentially some of the best and worst designed Pikmin in terms of like balance, but they are very, very, very useful. So they do increased damage.
さあ、このゲームのまあ
where they land
主役といいますか
stun and like just instant kills.
あまりにね、2でその性能をいかんなく発揮した結果、3では解雇されました。紫ピクミン君の登場です。紫ピクミン1匹で、約10匹の、10匹分のその働き手としてね、働いてくれるので。このゲーム基本的にその赤ピクミンは火に強いとか、あのピクミンは水に強いとか言ってるんですけど、紫ピクミンはもう基本的に何でも強いんで。
To like carry smaller items all by themselves. So obviously, well, one of the goals of this is that you want to be carrying as many items as possible.
このゲームは火で死ぬとか、水でやられて死ぬとかいうのは基本的に頑張れば回避できることなので。雷だけが即死なので、それさえまあ回避できれば、基本的に紫ピクミンだけで事足りてしまうというのがピクミン2のパー。
So it'll go from, I think we're at 53 now to 70 and then it'll carry on after that. Yeah, no, I think otherwise.
One thing that happened in Emergence Stage. Oh, sorry. One thing that happened in Emergence Cave is that you see that but there was a cutscene that mentioned where the ship collected bugs, and didn't seem very happy about that. Bugs are actually a really important element of the Pikmin payoff that speedrun. So bugs are not worth that much, but they are worth something. And over the course of the run, we actually usually try to get around 250 Poco's worth of bugs. So, you know, which is about
洞窟から出たらもう今日は、やることがないみたいです。
throughout the run, Jack is going to try to be, getting, bugs when prudent, and that's going to overall add to the global total and make the run faster.
Yeah, so it's one of the nuances of the game. So basically, the overall objective, as it's
で、最初の洞窟
to understand
で、地球儀を手に入れたので、目覚めの洞窟、目覚めの森か、に、次は行きましたね。
Right, and just in case anyone was a little confused, we refer to enemy corpses in caves as bugs or bug bodies. So you'll hear us say that a lot probably throughout this run.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because they're not really bugs, are they monsters?
強制的に終了になります。すいません。
So we affectionately call them bug bodies, as Urban says.
So on this day here, you'll just see, like Jack said, he's going to be growing some more red Pikmin. Additionally, we're going to be taking down this gate. It's the gate in the game that I think has the most health out of all of them. Doesn't matter too much.
Yeah, it's either this or someone in Perplexing Pool. But yeah, this will be the thing that will take the longest time. So everything else we're doing here is being knocked down. Because it's sort of the limiting factor of how fast we can go. Like, it doesn't matter how fast we do all of this, really, to some degree. It's just about getting the gate down as fast as possible. So the reason we try and do this bit quickly is so we can use these Pikmin that we're using now and the Pikmin that they're growing. We will then put them on the gate, and that will speed that up. So think about it that way.
ああ、そうですね。だから日本版とその海外版で、宝の種類が違ったり、あるいはそれに伴って値段が、変わったりするので、どうだったかな。厳密には、達成レベルになってくると確か海外版の方が早かったような印象があるんですけど、どうだったかな。
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Indeed. I was about to say Sneaky, a solid bro for the whole scene. So you can probably
that'd be great.
Do one more. Yeah.
Of course. We have $15 from Faust's last name that says, first AGDQ I got to watch live, had to donate during a game I loved to play as a kid. Good luck on the run.
強い。ああ、卵虫が出たから、これを壊し終わったら多分。借金返済は海外版、お宝全回収は日本版が早い。ありがとう。実機でも北米版がもっと早い。ああ、なるほど。
Yeah, even though Pikmin is sort of inherently a chaotic game, they do not help.
Of course.
Alright, so we're entering our first sort of meaningful cave. Like, I think this is going to be the first one that actually has like variants that we'll have to substantially adjust to on, I think it's maybe one or two floors.
この辺りから確かマップガチャが悪化するかな。
Really two types of layouts that you can get. The orientation of the two treasures. There's only one treasure on this floor, but it has 7 different spawn points it can spawn in. And the layouts can also, like the cave itself can also be a little different. So it really ratchets up very quickly here as far as variability of different floors goes.
Yeah, exactly. And here you can see that while I'm getting the treasure, another goal I'm doing is getting these sort of bug bodies where possible and sort of where prudent. So as we're waiting on this cross to move through the level, I just have basically dead time that I can use to really efficiently try and gather other bits. So that's what we've done there, and I think we've got...
海外版は牛乳の蓋の代わりに、そうですね。瓶の蓋。
All of these one is like the worst All of these one is the best layout to have the worst possible in, because I feel like that you actually can get a...
牛乳瓶の蓋はまあ、しかも1からもあったかな。お宝シリーズであるんですけど、それはまあ、アメリカとか北米とか、まあ、別のところだとやっぱりあんまり馴染みがないから、この地域にまあ、知られた宝が出るっていう、こういうところがすごい細かいゲームだなと思います。
Which I guess we'll talk about. Does someone want to go through treasure routing or skipping, or do you think there's a better time to go through that? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I can talk about it real quick.
Yeah, sure.
So we're basically trying to get to 10,000 Pokos, as Jack has mentioned before. We'll do that with a combination of bodies. However, the treasure route that we take is not always going to be the same. There is one floor in particular, we'll definitely point it out when we get to it. It's maybe 20 minutes from now. But one floor
黒はまあ火だけなんで、
you can get on there
赤ピクミンだけで
can either be worth 120 or
あれるのか
60
な。
and so you can it really changes how the rest of the run is going.
海外版のチャートを正確には発表しているんですが、死骸だけで250個程度稼ぐので、積極的に死骸を回収しています。
Because we'll know what Jack can skip or not. We'll point things out if he skips them. So,
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of these early floors, even if it's the worst layout possible, it's going to be well worth it to grab these treasures. So these first couple caves here are very efficient in terms of Poco generation. So you'll see us really grab everything and all of them.
Yeah. And the whole game's route has been rooted on the highest value treasures that you can get to as quickly as possible. So that's just a general point about how we think about where we're going. So obviously, Hole of Beasts, as it has loads of high value treasures, we definitely would come here. Even outside of a sort of important item that we're going to...
現生、現住生物の死骸も管理になるんで、何でも使っていきましょうっていう。
So that bulb has one of the treasures in it over there, and there's Matite, will probably make their second and hopefully final appearance. You have to be able to read where they are. Oh, this one's causing chaos. But yeah, so you need to be able to grab these to sort of the body total. Because over 10. So on this floor you have to
このゲーム、
find Matites and get to the exit
タイムアタック
without losing.
用のそのステージがあるんですけど、
We use the Mitites as well to nectar the purples that we grew back on too.
まあ、このゲームで、そのタイムアタック用の
The next floor. So
モードでは、基本的に卵虫が出るかどこかで、
a boss may completely
ガチャが発生してるっていう、
so we'll see here.
かなりもう、突き詰めると、この卵虫が、割と全てを握っているという。でも、この卵虫が出るかどうかはバランスなので、奏者さんはもうなんか、卵虫を引くために走ってるっていう印象があります。RT ではないんですけど、そのタイムアタック、スコアアタックが、スコアアタックで卵虫ガチャが発生してることがあります。で、ここでクイーンチャッピーですけど、紫くんがいれば、お、マジか。みんなのトラウマだと思うんですけど、もう RT ではもうあっさりですね。で、クイーンチャッピーはタイム、そうだ、1キルで、6キルできるんですけど、多分リカバリーを取ったのかな。まだ1回目だから、コチャッピーは出ないか。
I'll be honest, I never knew the intricate details of that mechanic until now. So there you go. We're learning. I'm learning with the stream. I just do the inputs. I don't know anything about the game.
It's all about her damage cap.
Okay.
Yeah, very odd.
But yeah, so there you go. So no disasters, which is good. She can definitely like squad wipe, especially like in the early days when you're speaking.
確かこの時からの
You mess up that trick and you don't get the backup. It's actually
翻訳されてる以上、やっぱり言語とは異なる部分があると思うんですけど、この違いを見るだけでも面白いかもしれないです。
For the rest of there will be unfortunately treasures that aren't worth collecting for the remainder of the caves.
Yes.
And those
Exactly.
Yeah, there can be really two reasons not to collect them. Either they're really slow to collect, or they're not worth very much, or a combination of the two. So yeah, it'll just kind of depend. And you saw the reason we care about that cave complete is because it's about a 10-second cutscene at the end of the cave if you do complete it, and then obviously if you don't complete it, you don't get that cutscene.
Yeah. So it's only really worth that extra time in Hole of Beasts because all the treasures are so expensive. There are some caves where, so for instance, this cave, there are definitely a couple of treasures that are not worth the time to grab.
このゲームは基本的に洞窟、原則として洞窟内では
no-brainer to see stuff.
その地上の時間が経過しないっていうのがあるんで、
Okay.
まあできるだ
More
け、
simple flaws is similar to Whole of Beast 1 in that we're going to be trying to get some of the bug bodies while we're doing this to sort of go towards that rolling total. So I think that should be good for that half.
Yeah, and the kind of important thing to point out here is that obviously the ones that are the bug bodies that are coming in while this treasure is going in are 100% free Pokos, because the treasure is the only thing we're waiting for there, and so they're the big thing that we're looking for, and that's why they matter so much in the run, because most of the time they're completely free.
Yeah. So it's actually crazy. We've rooted the entire game on the assumption that every runner is going to be able to grab a lot of these free bugs. So it's definitely like a fundamental skill when you're learning the game as well, knowing when to grab and when not. And making sure that you stay on top of it as well. So it's a good thing.
お宝回収のタイミングと、洞窟に入る判定を重ねることで、このゲーム、短縮ができるんですけど、それはまあ確か1フレームとかでなって、まあ成功すればラッキーぐらいに。
Typical gameplay of Pikmin 2 speedruns. So you notice that he goes for the far treasure first, right? And that's because the sub-level is limited by how fast the last treasure you collect gets in. And so, I mean, it seems basic when you say it out, but, you know, especially when it gets more complicated, it can be hard to keep this in mind. But, you know, Jack is basically showing, especially in these floors, just a really good basic fundamentals of, like, you know, how do you approach a level? You know, go for the far treasures first, you know, get the free bugs, ensure everything's getting carried. You know, just really fundamentals.
Exactly, and it sounds really simple now, because it's like, well, that one was over there. Of course you get first, it's really far away. As Kat says, some of the levels are a big, like, pretzel shape or something like that, and you're like, okay, well, what's the furthest thing now? Like, what am I going for?
宝回収の無理好き。
Making those decisions later
宝
on.
回収ゼロになる副作用が、すいません、その辺はわからない。
Why I've gone for certain treasures in which order, because that's one of the beauties of the game as well. When the floors are so complicated, it's very rare to point and say that is the correct way you should have played this floor. So I think that's one of the things that makes this game quite special. Like every runner has their own way of doing things.
ここで、白ピクミンを増やしています。
There's just a ton of routing on the fly through this, and there's
完全にもう
right answer. So
放射ではないので、それも聞きかじりの知識でやるだけこう、繋いでいこうっていうふうにしてるんで、そういう解説していただけるとすごい高いです。
These are white Pikmin. They are essentially speed fuel. Like they are the fastest Pikmin. They
白ピクミン君は、センサーを持ってるので、埋まってる宝を見つけるのが得意ですね。
So this is a good example here. We are putting whites on instead of purples because their movement speed is substantially higher. We're talking like, I think whites are almost double purple speed.
裏の川を
More than double purple.
だからスキップすると金額がアンダーフローする。
So like they are going to be the basis for all good play.
そんな現象が起きる。
That are going to be the slowest back. And making sure that you manage that is like really important. But yeah, otherwise,
it's a really tight race between purples and whites. But I mean, I would consider whites to almost be like the most important Pikmin in the speedrun. I mean, purples are too. It's a really tight race. But
for a second, I thought you were sarcastically talking about their speed, and I was like, damn, that's really rude to the purples. No. They have other strengths and other good qualities.
No. I mean, they're very much polar opposites, right? But I mean, that those two Pikmin types basically are the bread and butter of the Pikmin 2 speedrun.
They're the lifeblood.
Yeah.
And so that is an example of this kind of treasure we were talking about before. You may have seen that mushroom. I'll go back to it actually because the exit's here. So that treasure is worth 30 Pokos, and getting it would get the cave complete. So that's the cutscene takes 10 seconds.
ここでは最低限宝だけ回収して、もう特にやることがないステージかな。
30 Pokos is really not that much. So we skip it because it's not useful for our sort of win condition, if you will.
And obviously the choice. I was just saying, the choice between the two treasures on that floor is obviously very clear. The other one's worth 90. So of course we're going to go for the chapstick there, and not that little mushroom.
ここで日本版と海外版の違いが出てるんじゃないですか。
I will remind you again.
Thank you, please do. It
Absolutely.
may seem crazy to those watching, but the importance of saving here is crazy because this is in normal run attempts. The trick we do after this that I mentioned in the interview is actually a run killing reset point.
Absolutely.
So
again, here you just see.
言われてもワンタンキーすれば問題なんですね。
They just make every single boss so easy.
Yeah, especially if you know how to use them in like really specific ways as well. Like later on, there's a couple of quick kills that we may end up doing. One of which we will, one of which we may do. That if you use purples in the right way, they're just devastating. Like the game is not aware of how strong purples are. Oh, there's actually 3 bosses. Never mind that we'll use it on. Sorry, I'm getting a bit. Forgot about one of them, which I guess we'll understand later on. But yeah, I will now say verbally, so I have no excuse.
監視の人気、まあ、人気ではあることは間違いないですね。
But it's going to give us the power to lay down, and when a captain lays down,
今後寝袋があることでもう、様々な、悪いことを多分していくと思うので。
to certain waypoints, and so we're going to use it a ton to climb up ledges and get into caves way earlier and without Pikmin colors that we should have. So we're about to see one of those here, and afterward Jack is going to do that very difficult trick that we.
海外版の名称が5万ナップサックっていう。
The bane of a lot of Pikmin speedrunners' existence in a lot of ways.
まあナップサックってね、背負えるんでね。
So it's a sort of love-hate relationship at its finest, I think. Okay, so knapsack can be a little fiddly sometimes, but we got it.
早速使っていった。はい、これが寝袋くんの力ですね。高いところを登ることができるようになりましたね。これはもう壁に入ってますね、これ。今のはどういう原理だ。ここで青ピクミンの判定に触れましたね。
Great job. Really like to see because that can be that could have been us sat here for minutes and minutes resetting. So the result of that is that we now have blues. So does someone want to explain that mechanic while I just kind of end the split?
So there's actually there's actually Urban and I can tag team it. So the first one is there's actually a
本来やれば確か
exploits. So the first one is what
青ピクミンは確か最後に回収するピクミンだったんで、まあそれを寝袋で利用して壁で青ピクミンが出現する判定まで触れるっていうのが。
During a cutscene, you can basically drop below the scale, and that allows you to basically go out of bounds.
さあもう壊れ出してましたね。
So after you get out of bounds using the scale glitch, you can kind of walk along the ledge. Looks pretty precise. It's actually not very precise at all. The ledge is huge. It's an out of bounds ledge. And then we kind of walk over to the area next to this blue onion. And we leap across the knapsacking while we leap. The game, instead of processing it, captain instead processes it as a treasure. And that causes the captain to void out back to the nearest waypoint, which ends up being by the blue onion.
この青い音がここの初期位置にあることでできる技みたいですね。2番手の先の。
So that's not a useful trick. It's a pretty complex trick, and it's kind of miraculous that we ever found it in the first place.
Yeah,
with how complex it is. But basically what it allows us to do is we get to skip yellow Pikmin entirely. So a bit of a meme in the Pikmin 2 speedrunning community, like what is a yellow Pikmin? Because we don't see them in this run at all. I guess that's not entirely
I can say I've never seen one. Yeah, I've never seen one before. I don't know about you guys. But yeah, shout out to Claris as well for finding that trick. I mean, it's been around for ages, and it's one of the most fundamental parts of Pikmin speedrunning. I think. Like, if you think of payoff there and even the 100% category, it's integral to both. So it's hard to understate or hard to overstate how important it is.
Yeah, we're talking several minutes. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go for it. No, the 7 minutes. I was even just going to point out that one thing that you can do with orange bulborbs, the guys that wake up really early, casually, that's very problematic. But we actually take advantage of the fact that they wake up super early, and we actually lure them closer to the ship. so that
本
both
当はまあ
the
もう一個
treasure are,
宝があるみたいですけど、そっちの方
closer
は、
to our objective. And we can
距離に対して値段が安すぎるので、
point out that lure.
スキップという
For the
か、
most part, they run
まあ、スルーされましたね。
Pikmin will be able to carry unless you get like a perfect load of a Pikmin, but even then it's like tight.
Alright,
So it's
so
just
this is-
way easier.
This is pretty good to point out here. So we talked about how
Eh.
really variable. We haven't really
これは、
seen those yet. This level that Jack
川を渡りきりました。
the first one that we've seen that has huge variance. Jack got a absolutely terrible layout on this.
Oh, horrible, horrid.
It is awful. That's okay. It doesn't matter too much. You're still just going to see him start killing enemies on the way, and then we have to collect this strawberry because it's worth 190 cocos. We
Yeah,
really
so it's
just
one of
can't
those
skip
where
it.
we really don't have much say in whether we do it because the treasure is so expensive. So it's like even if this floor takes 2 hours, that's still really good. Like compared to loads of other treasures.
ヒガラフの頭と同じ価値しかないため、スルーされる
But
され
now,
た
as
み
you
たい
can see, there's a lot of other stuff I can do while this is. So when this time will not be completely wasted. Let's put it that way.
Right. So he'll grow some whites, and he can also
な。
collect
もう
some
一回水泳の時間ですね。
So again, one of the biggest things in the speedrun is maximizing your downtime. So you'll see lots of that, and that's one thing that's happening right now. He could have killed these enemies like on his way back, but before he went out there. But since the treasure was going to take so long to get in there anyway, we can start killing them. He can start killing them. He can kill them now.
Very
Sorry.
lucky stun.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't just throw one Pikmin on him.
I was thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Test one.
It's hard to tell, honestly. It's a tough call.
Yeah. Okay. So he ate 1 white off the treasure, which is
that's
actually not that bad a loss for me, in my eyes
で、
anyway.
白ピクミンに
I just
白ピクミンを増やしている。
because that's called a creeping chrysanthemum, or we call them like mums for short, and they can like knock off treasures, but generally speaking, they're quite easy to sort of distract. If you just throw one Pikmin, they can't eat one Pikmin very well. They've sort of been designed to deal with crowds, but if you just put one Pikmin next to them, they get a bit confused.
Right.
It's a very interesting thing in Pikmin 2. There are a lot of enemies that actually just absolutely short circuit when you just put one Pikmin in front of them. They're like, I don't know what to do with this. You know, and so
exactly.
it's
Oh,
sort of funny. There's going to be a couple other enemies in the game that work like that. And so it's always fun to see.
Yeah, it's like we were really trained to deal with more enemies than we are seeing it.
Right.
So yeah, Mum's a perfect example of that, actually, like a textbook example. Alright, so this floor, pretty simple. We get this treasure, even though it's only got a low value here of 40, because the comparative fastest way of doing this floor, if we didn't get the treasure, we run over to the gate and knocking it down anyway, which wouldn't actually save that much time to avoid the treasure, basically. Killing that snag rate is quick.
Especially because the gate can go down while it's being.
重いくせに40個しかないのに、エリ君も
Which is great, like great multitasking.
スルーされたみたいです。
Just like, oh, this is a very weird floor.
Here you'll see one of the first. Yeah, this is very odd. You'll see one of the first enemies that is going to kind of like fall from the sky.
高いですけど、
Those enemies are essentially 100% randomly placed. The treasures that are just randomly sitting out on, you know, the ground of different
本来はもう黄色を
those
連れ
do
て
have some rhyme or
あ
reason
った
how
の
they're
で、こういう
played,
電気トラックとか
the
も
enemies are just completely random.
ありますね。
So you do have to get a little lucky sometimes, and Jack was able to find this one using the treasure gauge, which was the treasure we picked up back in the first cave.
Yeah. I thought I killed a white by accident there, but I did not, which is great news.
Congratulations. This is a
Yeah, this is really weird. I haven't seen one like this in a while. So this is what I mean. This is why I think it's part of the benefit of the speedrun. Oh, really? That is unfortunate parting. I was really hoping. In fact, I was
People were like, oh my
expecting-
gosh, the water is pointing that way. Let's go. Water
That sounds
side.
awesome. I
Let's do
love
it.
water.
Let's do it.
So this is actually going to be quite annoying to fix, unfortunately. But that's kind of fine. I say that. My heart is in pain. So here
Yeah,
we go.
I don't think we talked about what the red Pikmin do. Their main thing, their shtick, is that they are immune to fire. That blowhog, that enemy that was there, was spitting out water, so obviously they're not immune to that.
Ah,
So
cool.
they
Like
freak it out a little
Chip
bit,
Pikmin.
and eventually they'll
Yeah.
drown.
どっくり系の
Yeah, which
確かね、
is
なんだ
not
っけ、
ideal. Even though spoiler
ゲームではカメラの
threads
視
for
点を
most of the run
外すことで
it's still
敵の動きを止めることができるんです。
use
確
them
か
for growing more blues on the next split. so they can contribute.
桜は、わざとそのカメラを近くにしたり、あるいは全く関係なさそうなことを映したりとかするのは、必要があるんです。
In the last level, he was able to use the treasure gauge, the thing in the lower right, to figure out where the buried beetle was. Because even though you couldn't see the beetle, you could see where the gauge was going up.
緊張やら何やらね、喉がだいぶいかれてるんですけど。
Normally, you actually have to kill this antenna beetle over here, who also has a treasure, to make the gauge normal.
桜も、
Jack knows how to scan spawn points.
安いので無視されました。
We did already find the other treasure, even though the gauge wasn't able to help us.
Yeah. So there is sort of a risk reward.
でも、機械系がやっぱり
It's going to take some time, but
高いイメージがある。
actually seeing if the treasure's here first is, I don't know, better than the sort of moderate time loss.
Yeah, and again, just to point out, so treasures that are in enemies are essentially randomly placed throughout the sub-level. So complete luck there that Jack was able to find the right one on his way there, because it could be in other spawn points as well.
Yeah, I think every Bulborb you kill is like a 1 in 5 chance.
体調がね、あんまり治ってなくて、
There's only 6 of them. Oh, there are only 5?
There's only
結構咳してるんですけど。
That's on me, guys. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Misinformation.
It's all good.
But yeah, as you can see, like, this treasure spawned very far away. So I guess if we were being hypercritical, we'd say this layout wasn't technically speaking very quick.
Yeah.
But overall, played fine.
Yeah, the next one we're about to go on to is the one that I mentioned earlier, which is going to determine our Poco routes or our treasure route, what treasures we can get. This is going to be the sub-level where he can get extra treasures sometimes. Other times they're going to be waterlocked, and we've unlocked blues, but we don't have any with us, so we ignore them. So basically he's going to run to the exit and hope that one of those treasures shows up. It actually looks like it's quite possible that it might.
It is possible.
Yeah.
So we can take orange Bulborb from the sky, basically.
Yeah, and
That's
the Bulborbs, by the way, are the frog-looking things. There are lots of different types in the run.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Jack isn't going to get any extra treasures here.
向かいは回収するものがないので、
Still have plenty of
苦
Poco
労したみたいです。
throughout the run.
Yeah. There's like loads of ways that you can finish the run. That just saves a lot of time at like the fastest level. Because you
Shout out
can
to
skip
the-
slow strategies. Yeah, sorry, Gonka?
No, I was gonna say, shout out to the Japanese score attacker Albert for initially discovering this quick kill. It's pretty cool. We basically take advantage of the fact that purples can slow down the eating animation, and we basically let it eat Pikmin because it allows us to basically kill the pileated snagret in one cycle, which Jack executed beautifully, by the way.
Thank you.
Very,
Because
very
normally he
good.
hops around the room like a complete lunatic and it just
基本操作が今、なんだ、ワンパターンキル
I can't even understand how much time that saves. Like
のサイクルを発見したみたいな、なんか言ってたよな。
Yeah. We used to skip that floor entirely. So back when Cap and I started running, we would skip this floor entirely because that quick kill wasn't really found. And so now we have that. This treasure is pretty much always worth it. So we go for it.
あ、さっきスルーしたフロアは、
so this is probably the most
そうですね、マップガチャの
not necessarily to execute, but
関係をもう無視するために、
so here the goal of the
安定して無視をす
loads
る
of
みたい
blues
です。
because we're going to need them for the rest of the game. Get the second globe treasure, which you'll see soon, and enter the final cave in Awakening Wood that we're going to do called Boblack's Kingdom. So a lot to do.
Yeah, that globe treasure isn't going to be the only one he's going to get either. He's going to grab
あ、合ってた。
total
あ
on this split, which
すごいな、こ
get
れ。
a few. So tons and
Beautiful
tons of
to
last game, we've kind of routed these above ground splits to death.
多
Because
分そうかな。
they're the only things that we can route pretty vigorously, right? Since the
Yeah,
sub-levels
like
are sub-levels are
100%.
super random. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. With 100% consistency, these will be the same.
It should be noted, yeah, that we're going to try to collect a lot, mainly because this actually is our first and only day in Awakening Woods. This is, I know you guys have, casually, some people obviously spend many days per area, but, we're basically going to try to clean up everything that we want to get here in this day 5, so, it's worth for us to...
Yeah, because we're not coming back here. As soon as we're done with this, we're gone. Because it's just hilariously slow to come back to an area again, because there's a whole bunch of fanfare, cutscenes, so like, it has to be worth it.
Yeah.
And we collect almost everything in the above ground area anyway. We collect 5 out of 7 treasures, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's really
あ、確かに。
Yeah, so we
そうですね。2を回収していないので、
the two treasures that are left. You actually
そう、
complete this whole area in one day, but
まあ、
the
ピクミン2で、まあ、だいぶお世話になる
really difficult because it's
敵からスプレーとね、激逃がす。
you cannot have yellows that are
ああ、今、
not gonna go into the trick.
いや、こんなことをしてますね。
It's degraded the sanity of some people. Let's put it that way.
A masterful double knapsack to get into BK to go set yourself up for BK early, Jack. That was very
Thank you,
good.
thank you.
It's a
Yeah, so
two-part
that one-
knapsack, as you saw.
That one can be quite fiddly, but if you get it, it's fine.
Yeah, BK is the next cave, Bullblack's Kingdom that he's gonna be entering.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So
Me-
the
me and my
utility of that
shorthand.
knapsack is being up there, where we can walk over to Bullblack's Kingdom, which you'll see later. Ooh, can't get that.
結構青を増やしてる
Grab, but let's see.
のは多分、あれですか
Do
ね。
it.
水に使っている宝を回収するっていう予定があるからでしょうかね。
Of course. We have $100 from your boys, aka Any Smash, that says, "Pay off debt, a millennial dream." Donating from the Northeast Smash community for Jack, who we know and love so much. Good luck with the run. It's 5 a.m. here in the UK, so if you can finish as fast as possible, that'd be great.
Yeah.
さっきの寝袋は、
Yeah.
あの高度まで上がると、
as well, so-
エメマダラの王国に入れるようになる
But yeah, anything
みたいです。
for you, eh?
We got time
Sorry, yeah,
for
you can
one more?
continue. Yeah, yeah, go for it.
We have $20 from Caro Cola that says, "I've been watching GDQ for a long time and I'm excited that I finally have the means to donate. Pikmin 2 is a fun game and I have many fond memories playing it. Good luck with the run and best wishes to all."
Lovely. I'd say like
それ
one
で
or
ピ
two
クミン
more
を最大数取り出して、
if you got 'em.
We have $25 from Absolutely Ash that says, "Hey
Ah,
Jack, good luck
青ピクミンをこんだけ増やしている理由は、
Pikmin 2 runners.
眠りの谷の、まあ、水没している白い壁を早く
And Urban,
破壊するため
make sure Cap doesn't go on a rant about deloading on SCX3, okay? I'm sure the Pikmin community will make a group donation later, but I wanted to get one in myself. Cheers.
That's so
brilliant.
sweet,
Thank you.
Ash. Thank you.
Called out so brutally. You didn't have to do me.
So you actually
In
just
front of
saw
my friends.
you just saw Jack put his reds back in the onion, the red onion. So we probably won't see those for the rest of the run, barring some disaster.
本来であれば黄色ピクミンでさっきのその
We're not
今
gonna
奥
see
に見え
reds.
た
We're not gonna see reds again. We're only gonna be using
電気の
for big-
壁を破壊しないとダメなんですけど、まあ、裏口から入ってしまえば
water levels and stuff.
何でもないですね。
No, I just made that up.
Well, we do technically coming up, just not right now.
Not in BK, no. Not in Bullblack's Kingdom. We do another lure just like in Snaggered Hole 1 with this very active boy. And the treasure decided to launch itself back into danger, so that's excellent. Thanks.
Yeah, but it's alright, we handled it. And
Yeah,
if
no,
anything,
of
it gave the orange bulb some time to be collected.
Just
So-
some fun math. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna go
No,
some
I
fun
think you're
math
about
for
to
a
say.
second.
Yeah, I think you're about to say exactly what I was about to say.
Oh
so
no,
go ahead.
go for it. No, actually,
I was just
gonna
gonna say, I
Go
feel
for it.
quite low on bug bodies right now. So we have
Yes.
sort of internal splits that we have to determine roughly how many bugs we've got and whether we need to start going out of our way a bit more to collect some. And based on my sort of internal calcs, I'd say I'm like maybe 10 or 12, something like that back.
Yeah,
from,
it
like-
doesn't bad.
That's exactly
It
what I was
happens,
thinking. I was thinking 9. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
この回で、ちょい雲が
Yeah.
But I'm not gonna try and let it get in the way too much.
あれから厄介
You
で
don't
す。
wanna pigeonhole yourself.
I do just want to point out. So again, we've talked about how different speedrunners can approach things differently, but we all have the exact same number of like bug bodies that Jack
お
needs.
おっ
in
と、
our
これは、
So, some things are different, but some things end up being really the same for all of us.
Yeah, a couple deaths there, unfortunately. We tried to, because you can leave Pikmin in their sort of endangered state for quite a while, and it ends up being okay. But obviously
Actually,
not
now that
long.
you're down to 98, that's actually not terribly suboptimal because there's 2 purples back in the ship from the chance totem. So actually, might have
Very
worked
true.
out. Might have worked out for the best there, which
Yes.
is breaking
He
a lot of
hold
people's
us.
hearts to say that killing Pikmin
Jack
worked out for the
Salemasa.
best, but it's how the speedrun goes, you know.
Yeah,
I'm also
maybe
gonna,
not for the best, but not the worst.
I'm gonna blow your mind, Cap. He actually has 3 purples in the onion right
こ
now.
の回も
Oh my goodness.
スキッ
He left one behind earlier, so
I did.
Quick, kill another one.
Heck, might as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, Pikmin end up being pretty disposable.
止めないようにもう笛を
So,
当てないように
don't
したっ
worry
ていう
too
感
much
じですね。
about a couple of deaths here and there.
They will be gone but not forgotten. Just remember that. They'll be remembered in the glory of Valhalla or something similar.
Yeah, this floor here has
Oh.
two enemies that have
Thank you
treasures
for
in them
owing.
again, so they're completely randomly placed. There was some clenching there, but we're good.
there were some
Yeah.
flip glitch shenanigans. There was some.
So to introduce one of my favorite enemies in the game from a pure fear and also speedrunning perspective, those are Anno Beetles. They use electricity and they link together and they can create huge lines of just electricity across sublevels. And Pikmin really don't like electricity. Like, they don't like fire, they don't like water, but they really don't like electricity. So they will just melt instantly. So you will see in a lot of intermediate and like even lower level runs as well, just people melting like hundreds of Pikmin.
波動解放。
Actually, wait, I'll wait for those two bodies to get in. There you go. So yeah, you can squad wipe really easily.
Yeah, for whatever reason, electricity is the only hazard in this game that kills Pikmin. All the other hazards
Instantly,
are just
right.
a
地下5階で
yeah, instantly kills Pikmin. Sorry, correct.
Yes.
All the other hazards, there's a delay, and they go through like a little animation, and like Jack said, they're mostly
ここもするみたいです
in
ね。
later Pikmin games they changed that. We don't know why they put it made it so terrible in this one. They were worried that we weren't going to use yellows, but guess what? Joke's on you, Nintendo. We're not using them anyway.
Yellows stink, and I'm not a fan. Oh, two orange bulb orbs right next to each other. Hopefully, we'll be able to deal with this, but I suspect killing one will wake up the other, which is quite scary. We're back.
One
Back
thing
there.
one thing that might seem a little
No stun, which is unfortunate. So Pikmin loss there is not great, but I think we lost three purples, which is less than ideal, but overall fine.
Yeah, there's also
Like-
there is a flower depending on the timing of everything, or you can just let it rock. You know, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, I think I'll probably let it rock.
You gotta do it.
Indeed.
お
But worst case we can see, like the absolute worst case, you can throw more purples in the cave after this, if that was absolutely
敵が入るのは
disastrous.
結構痛い。
I mean, unless it was and I didn't notice, but
No,
it
it's all
seemed
good.
okay.
We'll say.
You know? Go on, Urban.
No, I was just gonna say if it was disastrous, then FC1 is your best bet.
Oh,
Yeah.
true.
Alrighty.
I
So
think next sub level, I'm going to take off my jumper as well from boiling.
Yeah.
So I'll pass off maybe to donation stack because we'll have quite a lot of time.
yeah,
Which is
at
a
the
sort of
start of
weird
the
thing.
sub level, Jack kind of went straight toward where treasures and things were, and it might seem a little surprising that he can do that, but at the start of a sub level, there's a very brief cutscene where the captain is kind of like dropping in, and so you can see a good chunk of the sub level. And so a lot of us Pikmin runners will turn the brightness up on our screens, and that helps us see.
で、この回では、行き止まりから爆弾が降ってくることがあります。それからたびたびこのギミックが、登場しています。そう、このギミックの厄介なところは、オリマーとかロイ単体ででも、出てこないっていうところが結構厄介で、ピクミンを1匹以上連れていると、降ってくるっていうことがあるんですよ。それで結構厄介な仕様な気がします。
So this is Emperor Bulblax. Don't get too familiar with him.
まあ、っていう技ですが、今はやらない。
He is I think the best example of just like purples melt stuff.
Yeah,
like, they absolutely melt stuff.
That is the final boss from Pikmin 1, which we need, bombs and 100 red Pikmin. Here, you can do it with like 12 purples. No joke. It's kind of crazy.
So the reason why that happens, the reason why you can do that is, for
Oh.
whatever reason,
またしても寝袋の
the Emperor Bulblax
台所
will
です
not
ね。
get programmed with super armor on the wake up animation. So while he wakes up, you can just hit him with purples, and all of that damage is calculated. because for whatever reason, unlike other bosses, he doesn't have some sort of super armor upon wake up. So as a result, as all the damage gets tabulated, you see him last for around 3 or 4 seconds before collapsing.
He has a very bad time. Let's put it that way. But yeah, so this treasure here is really out of the way, as you can probably guess. But there's a reason for that. It's worth 250 Pokos. I think it's the second most expensive treasure we get in like the whole run. So we're really willing to go all the way for it.
前作のまあラスボスが、
And I say that,
の妖体、
really is it? It's like,
まあ、若い頃っていう、まあ、
but yeah, so we're good on money actually. So we made up that small deficit before from the later levels of Boblack's Kingdom. So that's actually really good.
ピクミンに反応する、
Yeah.
ポリマンに反応する
So
の、
maybe one Poco higher than our sort of goal, I think.
これらを、まあ、
This is
これらのコードを組み替えることで割と、
we're going to need to figure out
ネームクロを、まあ、服用してる
so
ってい
we
う。
can make educated decisions about whether we need to grow more. And this is only because of a result of that minor incident with the orange ball wolves. But yeah, so I think any number above maybe 21, I'm comfortable to carry.
このスペースで大体やることはない。だから次の。
It's a hard call because we need to enter one of the caves in this
です。
area.
大体この辺で折り返していっ
So we enter with about 13, and that's best case scenario. And having 13 purples is still good. You can still do it, but you have to be a bit more careful, and it can really spiral out of control. So I'm not sure. What do we think, team? Should I grow more purples?
I would grow more, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, worst case, we can show it.
Yeah.
But a good news of purples dying as well is that we get to take out more blues, I guess, for this split. So that'll speed this up.
And he gets to, so Jack, we're now going back to the first day, or the first area that we visited. You only need blues to explore the rest of this area, and the first cave we're going to go in here
ね、
is
さっき
white
青
Pikmin.
ピクミンを増やした理由は多分この辺で出る。
Can help speed things up, so we want them next. So we're going to see him do that in this first cave here. And the water wall here, the wall in the water is the only thing preventing us from accessing that cave. So that's what
So
blues and cave
we've
here next.
basically done all of these conditions. If you want to think about it this way, to help to get whites as fast as possible, because we've done well, not as fast as humanly possible technically, but basically very quickly rooted in. So we got blues because we need them to knock down this gate. And then the first cave we go, knocking down this gate is a cave with whites. So that's sort of the basic thinking around why we're doing things in the order we are.
Yeah, and so you're also going to see Jack put 4 purples on that treasure there. So we talked about earlier how we skipped the first treasure that you're supposed to get in this area on the tutorial day. However, the first treasure that you collect in the above ground
白が15
this
匹
area
確保できる
will。automatically end the day. So we are now going to try to get a treasure as close to the ship as possible. While doing other things, so that we can end the day immediately and waste as little time as possible. Because if we were to go back to the normal tutorial treasure, it's going to cost us an extra 20-30 seconds to walk over there and stuff.
Yeah, if not more.
また使いましたね。
It's brutal. The fact that the day ends is like I think one of the biggest.
これで水を抜けたんで、
And we've done a lot of investigating to try and figure out if there's a way we can get the cutscene to not force itself to play, but the game really wants you to like take a sec and leave after you get your first treasure.
Yeah, so we talked about how sometimes you can do a pause exit, so pause and then end the day to skip cutscenes. If you do that on one of those cutscenes, the next treasure that you collect in the above ground area will instead end the day. So yeah, the game really wants you to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna
ま
kill
あ、今のは結構難易度が低い。
On this floor here, you're gonna see
で、誰もでも
what
でき
is
る
a berry treasure. So
のかっていうですかね。
sometimes we can see treasures from a distance, but the berry treasures obviously we cannot. So Jack is going to be using the treasure gauge for the most part to figure out where this treasure is located. I think it's pretty close to him here.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
decently close.
Yeah, you can maybe
So
get
this-
a both this one.
This here is a good example of why purples are really good to have in quite a high number. Outside of just like needing them generally, like they're so much more efficient at absolutely melting enemies if you have like a certain critical mass, if you want to think about it that way. So because you can just absolutely mash throws. So here we're just putting more whites on that treasure so that it moves, generally speaking, a bit quicker.
探すこともないので、まあ結構そのコメント欄でも
Generally speaking.
書いてもらってますけど、なんか、
Otherwise,
このゲームの面白い
Good body collection.
ところって、
yep.
ルイとかとその食メモっていうのが
Starting area.
結構
Oh, and
面白くて、本当に、
very nice.
なんだろう、あんこうとかじゃないわ、フグじゃないけど、あんこうか。なんかもう基本的に食えないものはないとか言わんばかり、食えないものはないと言わんばかりの大食いがルイとそれで、まあ、彼のこの正確なこの2のラストのシーンでつなげていくっていうのが結構業が深いというか、
Electricity is probably number one, I would say.
爆弾君を
Okay, so we're getting out of the way of these bombs. This is a really difficult. Yeah, this is a very difficult position because both the dirigibugs are loaded. So those enemies are called careening dirigibugs, and they are an absolute menace. So they throw bombs in like really unfavorable ways, and even though they're overall slow, their ability to just decimate an army it can't be understated. So yeah, they are brutal. But if you keep them off camera, they don't really get up to their shenanigans as much. So that's actually quite a big concept that we haven't spoken about before now. The way the game appreciates that enemies are there is if they're on camera. So like this guy here, he's on camera, so he'll get up to his antics, right? But if I take him off screen, you can no longer hear his game sound. And that's because the game doesn't know he's there. It's mainly to save RAM, or just like save memory usage, I think was the idea. And a second way that enemies can load as well is like if you imagine Pikmin, like each individual Pikmin has like a little bubble behind it, or a bubble around it, I guess, that will load enemies in its area. So just because an enemy's off screen, you can't completely forget about it, because your Pikmin may walk past and then trigger some nightmare shenanigans. So this is Cap's favorite level?
Yeah, Cap, do you want to talk about this? You've kind of lapped this out a lot. This is one of the most complex levels that we're going to face in this run. So go ahead.
Yeah, so SCX3 is pretty complicated just because it can spawn a record number of rooms, you know, up anywhere between 5 to 6 rooms, which is really complicated, and it sort of just has a very wide distribution of possible treasures. So what Jack is doing right now is he's getting the gear, which is one of the slower treasures first, which is really good. And then he's gonna fight the buried beetle.
ピクミンに入れられたら、それは確かピクミンの判定に入らないので、確かでなく、抜くのをやめました。
Work out for him, but it is a more dangerous fight than most other beetle fights because he just is unrelenting in firing the boulders. But Jack had a very good setup. And basically,
I thought I had someone on fire. Sorry, go on.
No, and I was gonna say, like, what you see here more than any other floor is you see Jack rapidly switching back and forth between the captains, and you just sort of need to multitask this floor at a very high level in order to, you know, make it all right. And I think Jack did a fantastic job.
Yeah, and one of the, just to point out, one of the big reasons for that is this floor has 3 treasures on it. So it's a lot less cut and dry. When there's 1 treasure, it's really cut and dry what the fastest route is going to be. When there's 2, it's a little more, and then when there's 3, it's kind of up in the air. There are lots of different ways that you could do this that would be.
結構この構造のステージが結構やっぱり落ちるとピクミン死ぬので。
I was saying sort of earlier in the sort of talking about it. That's one of the biggest flavor differences you'll get between runners. So like Cap, I would probably say is better than me at this floor, or like just has it more thorough, I don't know, like thorough game plan for it, like a flow chart, I think you always call it.
Yeah.
So like he could potentially have played this better than me, or differently, or it could have worked out the same. Like he might have gone for the spring first, something like that.
White's on gear first, and then the gear gets back and use those whites to get the spring. But it's all good.
Exactly.
You're doing great. No,
I'm doing great. Thank you.
He's been
Cap
to say
is,
that.
he is the sage of that level. So honestly, that's completely fair.
Yeah. So Jack on this floor is going to grow another 15 whites. Again, super useful. Fastest Pikmin. We want at least 30 is really the minimum we want moving forward. Normally we'll have 30
Yes.
though.
Yeah.
Some people are wondering.
I think Jack is between this. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna say some people might be wondering.
僕はね、なんかすごいやっぱり
here. Is this really worth it? The answer is yes. Oh my goodness, yes.
制限数がある上に、それを超えると強制的にバッドエンドになる。結構幼心ながら、怖かった印象がありますね。考えると、2のワイルドな感じというか、あんまり制限が出たりすると、
It's like your due diligence. You should think about it like doing this correctly will allow you to play your best everywhere else. And like think about this, we don't collect our first treasure until maybe 8.5 minutes in. So we sit at literally 0 for 8.5 minutes. And that's all just about getting yourself ready for like the chaos ahead. So this sub-level is very, very complicated. So I'll pass off to Urban or Cap to sort of briefly explain what we're doing. But the stakes are high.
Yeah, so
スワップのステージを含めたやつ。
difficult. There are lots of annoying enemies. So those Anno Beetles Jack has talked about before, they have electricity, and that can kill your Pikmin. The other thing here, you see the little spider things moving around. Those are Dweevils. They will grab treasures, and they can actually run off edges, carrying treasures that have Pikmin attached to them, and that'll kill a bunch of Pikmin. There are also the greening Dirigibugs that Jack was talking about earlier that spit out bombs. So just lots and lots of stuff to do here. Jack actually got a pretty easy to manage layout. There are also poison geysers, which Pikmin can't move through, except for whites as well. So this worked out.
このフロアが一番最難関。
And yeah, so one of the reasons I killed that first Weevil here is so he'd pick up this treasure. One of the reasons I killed the first anodes is so that Dweevil would pick it up. So that way I wouldn't have to worry about any other treasures I sent back being sort of intercepted by him. Because they can absolutely...
そもそも毎回のマップガチャで本当にその欲しい宝が近くに来ないとそれだけロスになってしまうので本当に機動力が試されるゲーム。
I think no disaster.
で、どこらなんかやっぱり
As you can tell here, the game spawned a really big corridor and was like.
We would call this a meme exit, which happens.
ここはそのいろんな難解な要素が詰まってるフロアという感じなのかな。
Thankfully, we saw it early enough, so it worked out.
The exit, so I was just gonna say, if you pause, the exit is one of the few things that will actually show up on your pause menu, which shows up on your screen. So it'll show your Pikmin locations and your Captain locations.
ページに向けて出ましたね、卵切り。
So if you ever don't know where one is, just pause.
Yeah. Of course, there's like a tiny time tax to pay if you do that, but it's negligible. Like.
Right.
I think most runners will agree having the knowledge is substantially more
フッ
important.
ト電気と爆弾の3要素。
Most.
So in this level there is a roaming groink, a sort of a nomad groink, if you will, and Jack got, fortunately or maybe unfortunately, hard to say, that was at spawn. So Jack was just able to sort of deal with that roaming groink first thing, and gives him time to sort of not have to worry about him sneaking up on the Pikmin as he's carrying the treasures back here.
Yeah. So the benefit is it's safer, the cost is I had to spend time killing it, which ideally I wanted to spend that time running out to these treasures as soon as possible.
The groink is
that's the sort of trade-off.
The orange and silver fish frog looking thing. It's a weirdo.
Yeah, the enemy game design, or the enemy design in this game is actually kind of hilarious. And I think it's part of the charm that people do love about this game.
Oh, definitely. And all the product placement.
Oh, of course, all capitalism alive and well in Pikmin.
Heck yeah.
Love a bit of capitalism.
I will say,
so
Pikmin 2 is definitely product placement done right in the game. It is excellent.
Very true.
It's
just kind
charming.
of cute. Charming, indeed. Oh, they're going this way. That's an interesting one.
I think
It is.
well, the game
Really
it,
neat.
it must have been some fun little direction. So that's cute.
So the game is decided right as opposed to left.
Yeah.
Why? Who knows?
先ほど何回も
So obviously
マップはガチャと
we
言ってて、この
kind of know the path that a
なんだっ
treasure
け、敵組がそれによって増減したりとかするっていうパターンもあるんですけど、一応大まかなパターン数は確か決まってたはずで、そのうちの一番いいものをとにかく得ればいいっていう
we all were thinking that the treasure
Ah,
was going to
yeah.
go around the other path, but they went around that kind of longer path.
Yeah, so if I had known in my infinite wisdom that it was going to
Jack.
go that way, I may not have killed the
Save.
Draz.
Jack, save.
I will save. Thank you for the reminder.
Yes.
So, at our request, I'll grow more purples here just for safety to prevent more disaster. Normally, we would not do this because these purples we would have sufficient amount, like numbers, to feel safe in all our adventures. But right now, we're slightly short to the point where like it could interrupt sub levels. So, this is completely fine to do in runs overall. Like, this won't
ここで紫を
absolutely kill any no run. Obviously, at sort of world record level, it will, but any sort of deviation from the optimal route will do that.
I was just gonna say, think of purple Pikmin as the save. Think of purple Pikmin as the weighted blanket of Pikmin 2.
The weighted blanket, that's a very, yeah, very true.
Wait a minute.
And thank you for that very tasteful flavor reminder that actually came in clutch. I think
途中でそのね、限定チャップが
Yeah,
which is
so
honestly
the,
Right,
the reason
we will
Jack
have
is
a-
the save here is because, like we said, the first treasure you collect in
Just
this
like
above ground area is going to end the day, and he's trying to set up the can. The treasure name is the Utter Scrap. He's trying to set that up as close as possible. So if that happens to go in, it's going to end the day and kill the run.
それはスキ
Kill
ップ
any loose Pikmin that are on the map. It's not a good time.
Yeah.
So that is why
so,
he saved, just in case.
That would be hard to recover from. Let's put it that. Even in like
Oh,
progressing context,
卵キャノン
I think resetting
結
there is faster
構
than just letting
あれ
that
もトラウマ人によってはトラウマな多分ボス
damages
Oh,
to the
yes, yeah.
squad would occur. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just
Basically here, Jack is going to be setting up the cleanup
期間はもう
for the rest of this above ground area. So we're going to collect
なんだ
good above ground treasures that are
なるだけ、まあ、線
So you'll see partway move
船の方に
this bear
近寄せて
here, and you'll see on the next
置くみたいです
where that's going to be and how it's in a much better spot than all the way up here because you have to walk all the way around to get up to it right now.
そしてまたなんか
nice. So the reason
What?
this can be tricky is in large part because
What?
of the throw there. Despite the fact the purples went up without too much fuss there, sometimes it can be really fiddly and they'll slide down the slope and then you're going to have to retry throwing the purples up and you get stuck in this whole funk.
すると紫ピクミンが犠牲になるかもしれないんで
Wasting time, and while that's happening, the scrap is heading towards shit, and it will kill your run. It doesn't care about the fact you haven't put purples on there yet, and you're a bit uncomfortable about the whole thing. It will kill your run. I think pretty much every top level runner has got an experience of like at least a decent run dying to this.
100%.
まあ女神の谷
Scrapped, as we like to say.
市場では最初に宝を配信すると一日が強制収入
Pitch.
裏側がまだ残っている
Frontier
洞窟に入る前に
Cavern
宝が回収されてしまった場合
Frontier
Is it
Cavern
dark in
that
there?
Jack just entered, I would say is the hardest and most complex cave in the run overall. It's pretty close with Subterranean Complex, the cave he was just in. But it's still it's quite difficult to do quickly, so I
Uncle Willie.
think Jack did
Yeah,
very well though.
で
I think that's actually a really interesting point. So,
まあ下ろしておくと後で回収が楽になる
or like making sure that you don't have any disasters and going really fast, I think are almost different skills. One is essential and you need to do it all the time for obvious reasons. If you have all your Pikmin die, that's not very conducive to finishing the speed game. But like the other one is a completely separate skill. Like you'll find new runners often say when they're learning the game, like, well, I haven't had to reset this time, but this SCX took like 5 minutes longer than, I don't know, the person ahead of me on the leaderboards or something similar like that. And it's a completely different skill. And I think it's why this game has so much depth. Just understanding how to really maximize that speed.
I've run several speed games in my time. I'm ashamed to admit it. I
奈良
haven't
町
just
君
played
は
Pikmin 2 in
まあ
my
敵がとか敵からスプレーを回収しない
ceiling.
で
It's
結
still
局まあ邪魔
unbelievably mind-boggling. There's still so much that we can all do in this video game.
邪魔っ気や
I
ね
think it's what makes it fun to get into. What makes continuing to run it very fun.
Yeah,
there's-
and it's
there's-
why. Oh, sorry, I was just gonna say, and it's why the community has like been very, very, very good in terms of resources for practice. So shout outs to someone called Pick Hacker. I feel like if I went through this entire run without mentioning him, I would have kicked myself. He basically created a practice hack for this game, which will generate sub levels at any point in the game, sort of at the click of a button.
フロアで
So
は
practicing
運
this
搬を
game
始めると
is
爆弾が降って
really simple.
降ってくることがある
No going through and setting up practice saves at every single point, and that's like
Dude, yeah,
generating
I know.
growth of a think the competency of the community in more ways than I can really say. So shout out to Pikmin.
Yeah.
Okay,
Also,
this floor quite stressful. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, having a supportive community also really helps because we all, like I said, like we've all said before, really want each other to do well, and so we share ideas a lot. No one ever holds on to strategies or anything like that. It's a community effort in speedrunning. Well, when one of us does well, we all do
あ
well.
あ、なんか、見たことある気がする。このフロアで、
I mean,
油に
it's true in some
ピクミ
degree
ン
for the
を
other game, but
大量に殺され
it's
て、
just due to its nature.
はい、そうした、そうした。
So, okay, it may pass past this guy. I'm worried about this, I'll be honest. Okay,
should be
look, lovely. Easy. Plan the whole time. Absolutely nothing wrong. Okay, this is a little stressful, but...
Yeah, so you saw there, it's something we've talked about a few times, but there is a bit of a hierarchy when it comes to enemies and how you want to treat them. So obviously the best case scenario is that you can completely ignore them or unlock them off screen, deload them. That's going to take no time. The other thing you can do is distract them with a captain or a single Pikmin. That's going to take a small amount of time. And then the
そういう細かい仕様が。
thing is going to be killing enemies,
Yeah.
which is going to take the
Especially
most
if
amount
you're
of time.
Yeah, especially killing them before you've latched onto treasures. I think that is like worst case. That's where you're really gonna feel time loss on splits.
Is it back there?
So yeah, this is a kind of cool layout actually. I don't know how I feel about this.
みんなのトラウマ。
All three treasures are in different areas, so the fact that I've split up earlier here is actually not good. I probably could have done this later if I was being overly critical of myself, and this will probably have results
壁越し
against the fastest
を
bundle
配
time
置
for
し
the
て、
floor. But
紫で一気に片付け
we
る。
persist.
Nevertheless, we have to.
Nevertheless, indeed. And the
Yeah.
good news is, I guess we get the ball. This enemy here is called a ball bear, probably one of the scariest in the game. He can absolutely just ravage Pikmin. So I'm glad to get him out of the way early.
One of the reasons this is another very complex floor, and again, one of the reasons this is complex is there's 3 treasures, and one of those treasures is also buried, so we really don't know where it is.
マチャッピー
We're
は
100% sure
特に
until we find it, until the treasure page tells us that it's there.
Yeah, like I can have my best inkling in the world, and I could logically ascertain it based on the fact that we understand how, for those who caught the interview before this run started, we now understand how the game generates levels, like what the rules at play are. I don't think we'll go into it too much.
They
I
are
think just for ease.
very complex.
Yeah, just for everyone's sanity, because it is the difference between like absolutely perfect play and just really good play is knowing how the game will generate levels, and it takes a very long time to sort of get a sense for it. And even I don't understand, as I'm sort of Jayhawk would chastise me for at various points
Yes.
in runs I'm doing. But yeah, whereas invisible treasures, you can work it out, but yeah, you'll only know for certain when you get close, for the most part.
Right.
But yeah, I think otherwise no disasters on this floor, and with the game plan I went with, I didn't execute it badly. So that's sort of another good mantra in Pikmin. Like, if you have a game plan, it's better to stick with it and make sure you play that game plan correctly, as opposed to trying to confuse yourself and be like, oh, I should be doing this, and like scrambling over yourself. Because that time you spend scrambling is time you could spend grabbing treasures.
Right. The next floor we're gonna see here, in my opinion, is the most sadistic floor in the entire in this entire speed run. So there are the Anno Beetles and electric gates.
今じゃなかったみたいですね。
There's also an enemy you see flying around there, that little blue guy, called a careening snitch bug? No.
Ooh, I just
Bumbling snitch bug. Bumbling snitch bug.
So this guy.
Yeah, this guy. What he does is he'll grab one of your captains, and if he grabs your active captain, then all of your Pikmin will
もう必要ないため無視されました。
This floor has a ton of electricity, and Pikmin that are dismissed will run toward whatever enemy or hitbox is closest to them, which a lot of times on this floor is electricity. And so then you have 50 Pikmin die.
Yeah, it's incredibly cruel design. Like, the best kind of cruel. I think that Pikmin 2 has a reputation amongst the series for being really, really mean
Oh, yeah,
to its
absolutely.
players in like the best possible ways. Which from a speedrun perspective is great. Especially because this layout, I didn't even have to deal with it, which is fantastic. That does sometimes just happen. So you know what? I don't even have any skill for this one. The game plays itself, etc., etc. But yeah, it's a very tricky floor, and I think yeah, a newbie killer. Could I call it that? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
I have at least 3 or 4 emotes that originate on that floor. So,
Yeah.
Very true.
None of them are good. So there you go.
Yeah, they are all bad news. So these enemies are called Mamutas, and there are 2 of them. So these guys can't kill Pikmin, so they're not too scary from a run perspective, but they can bury your Pikmin. And as things are now, digging up lots of Pikmin at once is an inherently very slow process. So the cost of not killing these guys
確かミューリンは、
fill up like
なんだっけ、設定かなんかでピクミンは殺さないみたいな
but like 40 Pikmin or something from the ground, and that just hemorrhages time.
設定があったはずだけど、実際には殺させることができる。
Very, 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 very frustrating, and can actually. They're one of the most benign enemies in the game that can just like smash pace if you mess
they
them
absolutely they nom 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 all your pace. They just swallow it up as theirs. Like gardening, a great hobby, but I don't think it's conducive with speedrunning, as you say.
Grinding into the ground.
Yeah, it's hard to understate how painful that is as well.
Yeah. So
like,
this,
oh man.
the floor Jack is on now is pretty
Oh,
interesting. It's
yeah.
one of the few floors that we just completely
Page wa-
skip. We don't do a single thing on the
Okay,
floor,
let's
and
skip.
it's not the last floor that we visit in the cave either. Pretty unique floor as far as that goes, but there are treasures normally that are across water, and blue Pikmin move really slowly.
表石を2つ、それぞれ80個。地形によっては水を通らない。
So
知るだけで回収できる
7 is a very important one
場合
in
も
the Frontier Caverns.
あるので、
Is quite a hard sub-level in terms
Wow.
of like figuring out where the treasures are before. So
臨機応変にっていう感じ
like understanding
でしょ
how to make it rough game based on what you can see, because one of the treasures is buried, and you can see them working on it now, which is great news. But it does mean that this bulb I thought I may be able to leave, I now have to deal with. But while they're digging that up, I can deal with this safely and get the bodies, and then just in time, we'll switch here, take the whites to get the second treasure, which we will see shortly.
Very nicely played.
One thing that didn't really come into play on this layout this time, but can come into play a lot of times on this sub-level. You can use the information of where a treasure is not to really help determine where a treasure might be. So if you know a treasure is not in one of its possible spawn points, and it has to be in one of 2, that sounds really simple and like, duh, of course that it is, but it can be a bit more nuanced than that. So that's one extra piece of information that we are always considering as speedrunners.
Yeah. So there, for instance, I saw that treasure was in the main room, so I was like, right, based on one of the rules of that sort of algorithm we knew, the score for this room, it's sort of the value every room is given for placing treasures is hard. So
Bossはスキップされま
it's
す。
really unlikely that the second treasure is going to be in that room.
この子の
And then if
この
you
下の
look
階
at
は
like, sort of
後
alcove
の
bit,
グリーンチャ
there's
ットに
nothing that looks like it can be buried.
これはダッシュブーツ。
You can sort
時
of
間がかかるのでスプレーなしでは非常に危険。
You see, he's moved the
さらにスルーされましたね。
really close to the start here.
で、
As the last 2 above
まあ
ground
先ほど、
happen,
先ほど、
you're gonna see the day end immediately once that is collected.
なるべく寄せていた缶を
Just as a heads up, now is probably a very good time for donations while we clean up this area. Sorry, I know it's been a little bit, but that was probably the most hectic part of the game. So
Absolutely, no worries. We
あ、
have
これがあれかな。
from Ultazetta that says, "Good luck on the run, Jack." Shout out
初の
to the
宝を
speedrunning community.
回収したので強制的に一日が
We have
終了したっていうやつ。
$25 from Ghost Kumo that says, "So excited to see Pikmin 2, my favorite of the trilogy, at a GDQ. I love that Pikmin 1 and 3 have had multiple showings each, but I feel like there was a Titan Dweevil shaped hole which has now been filled. Best of luck to Draz on the run. Let's get to
確かにスプレーがないと結構もう
$100,000
リカバーがやっぱ
by the end of this run. I think we can get to
できなくて
$100,000 by the end of this run.
ほぼ全滅みたいなケースが結構考えられる
You want another one?
気はします。
absolutely, yeah, I think like maybe even like 3 or 4 at this point. This is all very self-explanatory.
No problem. We
So thank you.
have $15 from Super Bunny that says, "First time I'm able to donate a little something to a cause that touches my heart. As like many others, cancer has affected my family and friends. The Pikmin series has been a part of my life since I was a kid. Love the game to pieces, as well as this run. Who knew I would have so much fun to learn this game about 300 hours into this series? Keep being awesome, everyone." 300 hours, wow.
Hey, that's nothing compared to a speedrunner. Yeah.
Got some hours in there.
That's a good start though.
で、現実落としておいた熊の木彫りをここに一気に
Not anymore because I was too scared of the spiders later
回
on.
収する
It
流
makes
れ
me
みたいな。
quite happy to see here now. Hopefully also destroying all the spiders. Good luck, Draz.
Oh, there'll be spider destruction later on. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah.
Got you there.
We have
So-
oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah,
go
yeah.
for it.
No, I was just gonna say feel free to continue. Sorry.
Absolutely. We have $15 from Hassan that says, "Hey Jack, Hassan from London Melee here. When I watched you starting to speedrun Pokemon and Pikmin, I never guessed you'd become a world record runner. I'm so proud. Good luck with the run and Happy New Year."
Thank you so much. Happy New Year too.
Since world record was brought up, I do feel obligated. If people want to figure out how competitive the speed game is, I have to bring up the crazy speedrun statistic that in the year 2020, the entire top 5 of Pikmin 2 Payoff Debt all held world record at one point last year,
Yeah.
ending with
I was-
Jack Draz.
I was about to say, I mentioned it in the interview, but yeah, it's like insane how competitive this game has been this year. Like the top level's been pushed further than I think any of us really expected.
So, you know, it's very, there's always people who are, active and tight-knit, and it's a great community in that sense too. You know, it's a very competitive, active game even right now. So
Yeah,
it's really great.
All right, well, I think that sort of rounds out everything there. So we're done now with Valley of Repose, which I think is probably the most stressful part of the run. So that's a load off. And you can see the money total here. I'm probably about 27 Pokos behind where I need to be. The total we work with there is usually 8,100. So I think I'll be able to get that in terms of extra bug bodies in the coming levels. So I think that'll be the play. If there were more Pokos that I was behind here, there's an optional treasure that we'll run into pretty soon here that is worth 40. So that's like, I don't know, it's like a plaster or a band-aid for I don't know, a gory injury. You never want to get it in a run, let's put it that way. Like, only use if absolutely necessary.
Something's gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so lots of the smaller above ground treasures that we're going to see are things that will adjust based on the treasures that you got on SH6. So, Sagitol 6, that one that we talked about was very variable before. Since he didn't get anything, he's going to just be getting pretty much everything.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing pretty much every treasure you could reasonably expect to run into that isn't completely awful in terms of a speedrunning context.
Yeah.
終盤ですね、だいぶ。
I mean, that's fine. Those runs like that are completely acceptable, like from a high level perspective. Even though the fastest way is technically skipping a couple of the slightly slower treasures, it's still overall very quick.
You know,
So-
there are many permutations. I think it's actually apropos that I think what Jack is doing right now, I think this permutation is probably one of the most common, right? Where, no love nugget, no stupendous lens. I mean, so I think in a way,
だから、じゃあ借金返済
there are
RTA だと、
permutations that you can
どの
that are fast.
洞窟を選ぶかというところがやっぱり
The layout generation. You
Yeah,
gotta be
there have been
thinking.
some crazy treasure choices and runs that
すぐチャートを練る上で
like it's
重要です。
yeah, no, it's crazy. The variance is incredible and very creative.
水中の城は確かになんか、
New meta
い
route
ける
potentially came up, just
あ
happened to
で
one
パ
of
ス
those.
RTA 的にこう、
Shouts to him as
パ
well.
スが攻略されるっていうのが、
How we all thought about
見
it.
応えはあるかもしれないけど、なんか遠い、
Yeah, let's shout out
パス遠くて、お宝も安くて、で、やっぱり危ない。
who is
三拍子でスルーされる。
we will all kind of agree on
さっき、スルーしたフロアは、
player out there
まあ、あと
who's a Japanese
今40本個なので、スルーされる。
fantastic guy, super nice, and always willing to share strategies and talk through things. So really,
Yeah.
really happy to have him be a part of the community as well.
Yeah, he's really come into our scene like a lot more recently, which is, I think, been one of the greatest things like we could have asked for. He's just fantastic at the game.
I also want to point out that these are why Dweevils can be very annoying from a speedrun perspective. So here in Jack handled it, as fairly well. But what happened is that the Dweevils sort of picked up the treasures and just decided to go rogue. They're like, I'm out of here. Like, I don't, you know.
Yeah.
And so Jack sort of had to rescue them from the Dweevils, which of course is very stressful.
And especially because they can move treasures with Pikmin on them over lizards. So I think that's something that really shows. Like, you can set your Pikmin on fire by proxy.
でしょうが
So it's pretty sadistic.
なんか超存在とか
I
じ
think
ゃん。
that's overall tolerable.
Yeah, one small thing I want to mention about the
パラドキシカルエニグマが矛盾する謎みたいな。
the number of gates that show up on floors. Gates are the lattice things that
略され方と
put
か
on to get
そういうのがすごい。
but the number of gates on floors is fixed. So if you know where the gates are, then you're going to know whether or not there are gates in front of the treasure, even if you can't see that treasure. So like on this floor, for instance, the number of gates is fixed at 2. So there will always be 2 gates on this floor. And so once you know where those 2 are, there aren't going to be any elsewhere. And that's becomes a pretty big thing in a lot of the speedruns.
Which is why I've seen there are 2 gates here. So I'm just getting the rest of my Pikmin on there. And then getting these 2 treasures. Because I know I can do the gate in front of the exit last. Because that'll be the last thing I do. So there's no rush. I have more time to sort of get it done. I say no rush, but we've rushed the parts that need to be rushed. Now we can sort of sit and smell the roses slightly. Saying no rush in a speedrun.
Enjoy the fruits of your labor, Jack.
That's exactly it.
Is what you're doing. You're enjoying the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, the thing that Jack mentions about the exit as well is a lot has a lot to do with the forward thinking that we have to do as Pikmin runners, because things are so variable and you've got to plan several moves ahead of what you're doing right now. Because if you just do what you're doing right now, then it's not going to be perfect.
海外版だと
So a sign
この
that,
ドラ
although it may not have been the perfect way I played the floor,
完
the
全に
sign
奪
that
っ
the
てい
game
る。
plan I came up with went well for me was that the gate was destroyed pretty much at the same time the last treasure went into the ship.
そういう埋まってる埋まってないで差の
I'm gonna gamble the corridor. What do you think? So here, this floor we don't get any treasures, so we can just absolutely hemorrhage time destroying gates, trying to get to the exit. But this layout actually isn't so bad, and in fact, this treasure here, time capsule, is quite good, and I'm tempted to get it.
You were really low on bodies anyway. You had to get like 50
exactly.
bodies. I wouldn't. Yeah.
And the fact there's no gate on here. So for instance, if there was a gate in front of the exit here,
会話する
it may be worth it, because I know I'd have to wait for the gate to come down anyway. It may have been worth it to collect time capsule, which was over there before, because in the time that's moving back to the starting area, that gate's coming down. So that's like using your time more efficiently.
So fast BLL or
Yeah,
No.
So,
No.
so the person
think
who
we'll have
hated
some-
the person who hated spiders, you're about to see that purples crush spiders.
Yeah. So they really want you to have yellows at this point, I think. They really expect you to, but purples are pretty cool. So oh yeah, fast BLL, never mind. So yeah, he was
Nice.
super destroyed. That is like not consistent at all.
No, not at
Unless
all.
you're cat.
Again.
It's got some weird like homeopathy pseudoscience.
Wow.
That has to do with
あ
how
先ほどそれをしたフロアが、
whether or not
宝が3つあって70個、15個、10個なんで、スルーされました。
while they're attacking. So.
But that's nice. I mean, fast BLL, that's like not a huge thing. It saves probably like 8 seconds, I think. Maybe,
Yeah,
I don't
something
know.
like that, so.
Do we have a consensus on that?
I was gonna say, you had enough.
Fast
You had
BLL.
enough purples to do my normal strategy, which is just as fast Empress or fast BLL.
Oh, okay, so maybe not then, but
Yeah, it actually between like a super fast urban alternate, it is somewhere between 0 and 2 seconds, but it looks cool as heck.
it does look cool. He just sits there and acts really confused and dies obediently, which is honestly all you can ask for an enemy in Pikmin 2.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about different strategies that each of us has. And one thing that we kind of like to joke about is that if you showed any of us top runners a video of another top runner, we could probably pick out which top runner was like responsible for it with no other like identifying information, which is pretty interesting because, like Jack has said a couple times, everyone really has their own style.
Yeah,
Which makes
and
for,
it's like key
makes
to
for
the
a
game.
really interesting and competitive speed game.
向こうの時間だと
And
確
also
か
from each other is like, even if
深
you're
夜
like, better than
2時ぐ
someone
ら
on
い
the leaderboard or like someone's up and coming, but they're
1
still
時
not like world record level or something close yet, you can still learn because the way they're going to play the game, they're just going to value different things to you, and they'll have different skill sets that will develop sort of naturally. So it's incredible. That's why new runners in this game, like, usually can contribute something meaningful pretty quickly. I think I was like in the scene for about a year, and I rerouted something, and like Paper Mario, like famed Super Mario Sunshine 100% runner, like he also contributed a route change relatively quickly, and it's just like there's quite a bit to go at.
The more people that run a game, the more people that have eyes on a game, you know, the more optimized it gets. And I
多分
think that
ゲームキューブで好きな他のタイトルを聞いてるのか
and those that do, you know, learn to swallow it, you know, in the face of, you know, new information. And I think that we're really accepting in that sense, you know, like anyone can contribute, you know, as long as your ideas are good and as long as the timer is fast, that, you know, we want to have your ideas, you know.
Yeah, exactly. A lot to go at. Alright, so last cave in the game. Unfortunately, a very stressful cave. You can see the only hazard there in Glutton's kitchen, electricity. Guess what hazard we don't have the means of dealing with in a sort of conventional way? Electricity. So we are at risk here.
The other thing that makes this cave really stressful are enemies called bread bugs. You'll see one on the next. You'll see one on the next floor. But they can snag treasures, snag enemy corpses, all that stuff, and take them underground. And if they take them underground, you gotta kill the bread bug. And they are a pain in the butt to kill. We'll see. He's gonna kill one here, probably not yet.
So it's basically, imagine the inconvenience of Dweevils before, but then just exacerbate that even further. And it just, because they take so
この
long to
作品
kill
編成
Dweevils
アーケーディは
when they drop the treasure.
キロピクミンはもうちょっと
The treasure is gone.
あれだから
You
心
can't
拍
go
が
straight
やらない
away
とい
and
う
just give it back. Like, you have to actually kill them. And the fastest way of doing that is hitting them one by one. And I think each hit is about like, I don't know, like an 8th or a 10% of his health or something. So it takes a really long time.
Yeah, it's definitely less than an eighth, and probably less than 10%. It's probably 12 or 16 hits. I don't know exactly. It's too many. It's how many?
It's bad. Like, it will kill your run straight up if you're on like PB pace a lot of the time.
And purples don't do extra damage to red bugs for whatever reason. So all Pikmin do the same amount of damage. So that's one reason that there's such a pain.
For one enemy, purples cannot just absolutely run over without thinking about it. So here we see both the bread bug spawns are quite close here. So they have these little homes, essentially. They will take treasures back to when they're stealing them. So it's actually really nice to have one, or have them
ショ
both.
ック死の台所の
Oh, I didn't
回は
I'm probably going to do that.
日本語版だと UMB の蓋と
I'll
か
destroy
クッ
Select
キー
Gate first, finish off that Anno
食べ物
so
な
I
ん
can deal
で
with the rest.
安くなりがちなんでスルーされる
And I'm aware that that blowhog as
That's
well
me.
is moving, so I'll need to be careful about that too. In fact, I'm going to do this. So that enemy over there is called a puffy. I think it's puffing or withering blowhog, one of those two.
That one is a puffy, yeah.
借金返済だとそのやっぱり
Like a puffy blowhog.
お宝の価値が高くなりがちなその海外版が優勢で、日本語版は
The blues and whites sort of fell off the treasure there.
お宝が軽い傾向にある。だから、100% アール系とかだと、あれ。
I'm happy to take that sort of small amount of time for insurance.
でも、
Loading the purples on there to make sure they got
ワードでも
unscathed.
13秒なんで、多くに遊ばれてると。
End time on the floor. Okay, so the only thing I'm now thinking about in the back of my head, apart from don't kill the Pikmin, is make sure I get 10
リーダー
copies.
のリーダーボードをちょっと見たんだけ
So
ど、
there are enemies on this floor that I can
先週に
with
ワールドレコード
to make sure
を取られてた
you
み
don't
たい
want
で
to
す
be the
ね。
guy in the final floor of the game with your pants down and not enough money. That's embarrassing.
Definitely not.
So we're trying to avoid. Oh, I thought this was.
We already had that meme.
No.
でも結構、
Another fun thing about this floor, any floor with bread bugs really, is that sometimes the game will just randomly crash. It's
アクティブな奏者で
and it happens
6人ぐらい
like a half
わかんないですけど、
Yeah,
the
like,
game will,
I've been playing this a while, and
yeah,
I've only seen it
the
like
game will
twice.
just crash. And I think I'm going to talk about myself for a minute here, but I unfortunately had the luck to, this has been years ago, but had the luck to have a game crash on a world record pace run. And that almost broke me.
it made your character. It's your like sad backstory for your redemption.
まあ、それまでは日本人当社が宝回収と
Yeah, thankfully it's not something
GG.
general you should be too worried about. Right. I think it's something that flashes through your mind when you're on the pace or something. But for now, I'm not worried about it. Let's put it that way. Oh my naivety.
There's also on a couple of these floors, so on this one that he just is about to clear, and on the second floor of this cave, sometimes treasures can be in high locations. You're supposed to use yellows to get them. You can actually use some kind of glitchy purple throws. Purples have weird collision, so you can use that, and that will give them some extra height that can get up to those ledges. We didn't see any of those throws in this run. Hit up the Pikmin Discord if you want to see them, because they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they are very cool. And it's, again, another creative solution for not using yellows under any circumstance or better than that.
Never.
Never, I refuse. Early Blues is too cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this is actually... So this floor, very stressful. Cannon Beetles in the middle of everything, just... They wanna absolutely wipe you. They wanna nuke your board, but we are not having it.
I will say, the nice thing about this does end up being that we're toward the end of the run, so we really don't care too much about our Pikmin counts or anything like that. So he's not gonna kill too many of the enemies that are in the way, unless they're just like really, really in the way. Luckily, there actually weren't very many enemies at all. So
no, it's actually like
helpful.
nothing, which is fantastic.
They decided to be cool, so that's nice.
So yeah, this layout was, you know, kind. No, run! No purple goes in vain. We're so close. We're so close to the end. We gotta keep our squad with us over
Dwarf
here.
bull bears are actually relentless. They won't stop chasing. Sometimes if a treasure's moving slowly enough, you'll actually see an army of dwarf bull bears just like chasing the antenna. It's pretty funny to see.
Liam Neeson's.
Yeah.
They will do anything they can to absolutely destroy you. They will find you.
13 in bodies. You know that.
13? No,
13.
less than that, I think. Just 3.
Because
I need
what
two
number was the
Sorry, you're
9, 7,
automatically
12.
including the giant bread bug, and I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes. Very good.
Yes.
So we got this enemy here, another bane of existence of Pikmin Speedrunners type enemy, I think. The giant bread bug.
Which
so
cleverly,
5番のと別の宝で、そちらが重い。
he is a loaf of bread. If you ever forget his names.
He is inarguably
bread-like.
These guys could be argued that they're bread. They're like little brioche buns. He is a loaf. He is a big loaf.
You say loaf. Yeah,
and
boy.
he does whatever he wants.
But basically,
so this is like why we hate him.
This is the traditional way to do damage to bread bug enemies. So if you've ever seen like a Pikmin 1 speedrun, this is how they do it. But if they carry in an enemy corpse or a treasure,
フロアの目玉焼きは空を飛ぶことがありますが、今回はセーフです。空を飛ぶ目玉焼き。
The regular bread bugs take one suck up plus one other small hit.
Yeah, like you could just throw a Pikmin on it, like here, and it would confirm that. Yeah. So now I think we've got pretty much everything in. It looks like everything's coming through in the correct time. So here, the bread bug in this cutscene, you can see he's died because he collected an Anno Beetle before, and this cutscene.
残り150。
Are we gonna get
大体やっぱこの
good? We might get actually exactly 10,000 for a GDQ.
It is maybe, solid maybe, because I think that bread bug will collect. Yeah. It'll die.
No, but it's fine, right? Because you need 10 more Pokos, correct? Yeah, you do.
Oh, the giant bread bug will. But I meant the
you're
little
gonna get it's the math.
Oh, okay, that's very neat.
目玉焼きが飛ぶと、まあ、
Urban called it, right?
早くする可能性が。
Collect that small bread bug under any circumstances. So.
All according to plan. So there you go.
They
did everything correctly.
Yeah.
And did a neat.
Time is rapidly approaching, by the way.
Yeah,
yeah,
around,
so
around 30 seconds from now.
ま
Yeah.
あ、
So time is
これは多分あれかな。
after it
もう
says like
もう出て、
and then it'll cut to black, and that's when time is. But yeah, so everything went well.
現在の多分文字が出たら、
But yeah, can't ask for too much more.
終わりかな。
Same on the last split, but there you go. I think that's pretty much everything covered as well. So yeah, the game will sort of boot you out of here, but there you go, we repaid it.
GG's, Jack. GG's.
Congratulations.
というわけで GG。
First time Pikmin 2 has ever been included.
当時式で GG ですね。
Did a fantastic run, so congratulations.
Did everyone ask what the final time is? I suspect
It's time, by the
143.
way.
というわけで、
141.53 is what I have.
そのドラッツさんかな。
Not a bad
あ、
run.
お疲れ様でした。という、
So I guess
本当にコメント欄の解説の方々も本当にありがとうございました。
It's been a pleasure to be a part of it and to get to know everyone, and it's been fantastic. We've met up at GDQ several times. I think we're at that perfect size where it feels like I know everyone and everyone knows everyone. So it's just
で、
fantastic.
多くの解説の方が
And it's really
いてく
inspiring.
ださったのですごい助かります。
I also want to do just a quick shout out to some of the old boys who have been around the community for a really long time, who have inspired a lot of us to keep pushing. So that'd be Pie Pusher, TCB Trio, and Ghostly, who I don't think we've talked about yet. So I just want to say thank you to all of them. You guys have made this community fantastic, so thank you.
And if anybody, of course, I mean, it kind of goes without saying, is interested in playing Pikmin, please find the Discord on speedrun.com. And I personally want
すごいやっぱり
that's a promise.
進行
There's like thousands
して
of
ました。
thousands of
一応
YouTube
勤めてましたけど、すごいやっぱり、Google メモとか
I can guarantee
の
you
解説の方が言ってくださったりとか、すごいやっぱり
the entire
まあ本当に愛に溢れた
bombard the Twitch
ゲームなんだなって
We
いう
we will watch your new run. We will do it.
感じましたね。コメント欄とか眺めながら。
we will be in there, you know. So like we're gonna help you. So if you wanna take a run, you know, we're glad to show you the ropes. So,
Brilliant. And I think
あれ、
that's
ルイ
that's
君
everything
が
else.
yep.
So,
Alright, yeah.
どこかに行きましたが、
Thank you
ま
guys.
あ、借金は返済したので、もう問題ありません。というわけで、進行の方を務めてました渋沢と申します渋沢でした。ありがとうございました。
Before I head off here, I have a couple of donations I want to share with you guys. We have $50 from Bobby Berm. Here's the $50 I promised for my light matter run for all deaths involved. Thank you all for watching, and shout out to everyone behind the scenes for putting this event together, and let's keep the hype up for the next week. Lamp hype! We have $15 from Churmorg that says, about to head to bed after staying up way too late watching Pikmin 2 here, but I'll gladly donate a bit during this run to help meet 100K by the end of this last day, or first day. Thank you so much for that. We have $500 from Aversa that says, thanks to AGDQ and keep up the wonderful work. Donation goes towards Purple Ghost Casper's choice. Hey, that's me. I'm going to be putting that donation towards the bonus run 5, Super Mario 64 blindfolded. We have not gotten near that incentive yet, so make sure you send those donations in, because I promise you that run is going to be fantastic. Alrighty guys, and with that, thus concludes my hosting shift. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and donating and just being a supporter of the runs. I am so excited for the rest of this week, and I know you all are too, and I'll see you very soon. Up next on the hosting mic, we have Venbright, so make sure you show them lots of support. And now, with that, we'll be showing off some of the prizes.
All right, let's just go ahead. And do you start out with the? Hi everyone. How are you? I'm Sent. I'm here to talk about the prizes. I'm not. Okay, look, I was told that we really didn't need the red Pikmin for the run, and I figured they were there. I thought they were ordered for the table. It's up. I'm sorry. I'll get my own. I'll get my own. Don't worry about it. Anyway, with the end of that amazing Pikmin 2 run, now is the absolute last chance for you to donate to win all of the amazing prizes we had in that Diddy Kong Racing 2 Pikmin 2 prize block. Prizes like these absolutely beautiful Pikmin Amigurumi dolls here from Doug Reichel. Thank you so much, Doug, for sending them out to us. Prizes like the